Hi, I'm Braden. I'm the service manager for dry air manufacturing out of St. Bruce, Saskatchewan.
I'm Cody. I'm from Ohio, service in the United States.
Today we're going to be looking at the 1.8 million BTU Hydro Heat Pro that dry air manufactures. We're going to look at a few things with you: the electrical and the control panel, the pump and the plumbing components, the burners, the fuel in and power into the unit, preheating that we do inside of the unit, as well as the plate heat exchangers and controls on the rear.
Here we are in the front of the Hydro Heat Pro. We're going to talk about the electrical connections. Each one is 4-wire, 30 amp, single phase, 240 volts. You have this one for the front, this for the back.
The gas line in is a 2-inch ball valve inlet. We use this for natural gas and propane. We have a regulator that's supplied with the unit that's stored inside the unit.
On the left side of the control panel, this is where your diesel connections are. You have 1/4 inch quick couplers that goes to an auxiliary tank.
The propane regulator that's supplied with the unit is located on the passenger side near the front of the unit. You can deattach it from here and attach it to your inlet of your gas train when you're using propane gas. On the passenger side of the unit, we have storage for your other 2 gas types, diesel and propane, if you have natural gas installed. You'll have to take these burners off and change out the ones on the front of the unit when you want to use a different gas type. Here we are on the Hydro Heat Pro. We don't have a cabinet on this unit, so we can see a little bit better inside. Here we have the control panel, main controls for the unit. You have your main breaker switch to turn 240 volt to the rest of the control panel. You have your pump and water heater switch, your main temperature controller, as well as 7 troubleshooting lights. The 6 top lights will be on in green when the unit's running properly. We have 3 gauges or turn and supply temperatures, as well as your system pressure that should run around 35 psi. Here we are inside of the control panel. We have our main breaker again and your main temperature controller. You also have 2 24 volt relays as well as 2 120 volt relays. Here's a 24 volt transformer and a 12 volt transformer. Behind the control panel, about eye level, in between both water heaters, we have our high limit switches. We have 1 automatic high limit and 1 manual high limit for each water heater, but they will each shut off the entire unit if the temperature ever gets high enough. The automatics are usually set at 200 degrees and the manual high limit is usually set at 215. Over here on the plumbing of the dry air Hydro Heat Pro, we have 3 temperature control valves as well as 1 pressure bypass valve. The temperature control valves regulate the air and fuel temperature and supply hot glycol to the preheaters to allow 70-degree air and fuel to run on the burner at all times. This temperature control valve here is a bypass, which allows glycol to run from the supply side to the return side of the unit at all times up to 140 degrees. Your pressure bypass supplies glycol from the supply to the return again, but it's to help with the deadhead situation.
Okay, on the unit we also have a 3 horsepower pump. On top of this pump you have a run capacitor and a start capacitor. Also you have 3 seals in the pump, and if anytime over the years if them seals start leaking, you can have them replaced through us. And also if you ever have problems with the pump, you always want to check your capacitors. There is 3 pumps on the unit and they are all 3 the same. For our preheated air, we have a radiator at the top of the unit above your burners. We have hot glycol that comes through the radiator on this side, returns out on the back side. As the burner kicks on, your fan will suck air into the burner, which then pulls air up through this chute, across your radiator, through this gray sleeve into your burners. So we have 70-degree fuel running through this machine at all times. And how we do that is through this tube. Hot glycol is on the outer tube, warm fuel is on the inside. Your fuel comes through up across this tube and over into your burner. So we're going to talk about the preheater on the unit. When you plug the unit in, you have power to it, you turn your breakers on. You have this preheater here that will heat up. It is full of glycol, and what it does, it heats the glycol, and as it gets warmer, this will all heat, and it helps heat the glycol in the exchanger. We do that so when you've turned the brake, or you turn your pump on and you hit the burner, then you have hot glycol going through your pump, and it starts a lot better.
Your main gas line into the unit branches off into 2 gas streams, one for each burner. These gas streams are used for either natural gas or propane. We like to have at least around 14 inches of water column for gas at all times. There's a main gas line gauge coming into the unit, and it branches off and separates that gas into each one of these. You have a regulator to fine-tune the gas going to your burner. You have a redundant valve and a main gas valve, as well as a low gas pressure switch and a high gas pressure switch. On new setups, you're always going to want to reset your low gas pressure switch because there will be air to the gas line. And you have a secondary gauge at the bottom of your gas stream to see what pressure you have going to your burner.
So here we have a diesel burner. This is a natural gas burner. Your propane burners will also look like your natural gas burner. Only thing that's really different between these two burners is they both have reset buttons in the front. So when you go to fire your burner up on your diesel side and it may shut off because of air in the system, you push this in for 3 seconds, let out, it'll reset, and then you watch your gauge up here, it'll come up to pre-purge, and then once it lights, the gauge will come up to where this sticker is showing where it should be. Air intake, this will read the temperature of air, and then you have a 4-prong wiring system that you have to plug in when you switch these out. As for the natural gas and propane burners, pretty much the same except for the reset button. So if this unit would have air in the system and it shuts off, you can push this button in and it will have a flash code that will read, 1, 2 flash, 3, 4 flash, 5, 6 flash, all the way up, and then by that you can look in the book and it'll tell you what needs to be fixed on the burner. This also plugs in back here. And for the diesel burners, you have your diesel comes in on the side, as in for these, you'll have a piece that plugs in underneath for your fuel.
On the rear of the unit, we have 2 plate heat exchangers. They're nearly identical, however, the blue unit here is potable water, and the red unit is processed. So we have a couple different fittings between the two, but the operation of them is identical. We have a 3 horsepower pump, identical to the one on the glycol side for each plate, as well as glycol in, glycol out, your water in, and your water out. We have an actuated valve at the top of the glycol that measures water temperature on the opposite side of your plate. It closes and opens as your water temperature reaches your set point of where you want your water. So it delivers hot glycol all the time until you start getting close to your water temperature that you want to achieve, and it slowly closes off and allows glycol to maintain a water temperature. Your main power switch is at the bottom, and that powers up your pump. Your actuated valve and temperature controllers get power from your water heater, and they're turned on with a switch. An adjustment dial is used to adjust your water temperature where you like it, and you have a digital readout to see what your dial is set at. Each plate heat exchanger has 2-inch cam lock connections for your water in and out of the system. We have a pressure gauge on our pump, as well as a temperature probe on the inlet of the water side. There's a drain off the bottom of the pump with a fitting to drain all the liquid out of the system. This temperature gauge can be replaced with your temperature controller sensor in case you want to change up how your setup is being run. In an occasion where you're heating a large body of water and you need to know the main temperature of the body of water, you're going to want to have your water temperature sensor off of the inlet. If you're heating water coming through that's always cold and it's an on-demand heat service where your water coming out has to be at a constant temperature, you're going to want your temperature sensor on the outlet of the plate heat exchanger. There's also 2-inch cam lock connections for auxiliary glycol flow as well, if you ever need to hook up any dry air accessories that run off of glycol. Your secondary 240 volt plug is going to run to this breaker box here. That's what sends power back to your pumps on the rear of the unit. So you're going to want both breakers on when you're operating both pumps on the rear of the unit. The manuals are located in this black box here at the front of the unit. If you have any questions or concerns, or if you need an online operator manual or parts book, they're all on our website at www.dryair.ca. If you need any service at all, you can call me or Cody. Our phone numbers are listed on the website as well for 24-hour service.